What we want to do now is build the groove further with some signature grooves, loops, and accents. Because house music is built on a 4-on-the-floor foundation, this is a great way to get creative and start to make your groove stand out and really add some personality. So let's come over to the audio bin and we're going to add these source files to build these loops and groove accents. We're going to add loop 1, the clap, loop 2, and the percussion hit. So go ahead and add these to our project. And let's go ahead and pull out loop 1. Now, there's a lot of places to get loops, and if you purchase a loop library from a company, most of the time they're organized and named pretty well, including the tempo. So they'll give you the tempo, and that instantly tells you what the tempo is, so you can just adjust it accordingly. But if you don't have the tempo and you need to find it, we're going to find it manually in a similar way that we found the tempo of the original mix. So in order to do this, let's double click that loop 1 and take a listen. So it's 2 bars long, and what we're going to do is shorten it just to loop perfectly in the sample editor to be a perfect 1-bar loop. So let's listen for the downbeat of bar 2, right there. So it's right here on this transient of that peak right there. Right there. So we count that off, and then we're going to slide over the region end marker and zoom in and get that. We're going to zoom in real far. When you zoom in far enough, you can just hit the right arrow, and that'll take you to the end of the selection. And we're just going to put that right on the start of that transient. Then we'll zoom out, make sure the loop is on, and get that thing looping just right. So let's come out of the sample editor, and that's a 1-bar loop in the sample editor, but when we set up a 1-bar cycle region in Logic, notice that they're not lined up, and that'll instantly tell you that this loop is not in the tempo of our song, which is 126. So in order to find the tempo, again, just like we did with the original mix, hit Command-T. We're going to temporarily change the tempo globally, and it tells us it's 128 BPM. All right? So that'll tell you what tempo that loop is at. So let's come back to our tempo, 126, and what we're going to do is now Option, drag that loop to be a perfect 1-bar loop in our tempo. So now we've time stretched that, just like we did the vocals, to be in the tempo of our song, 126. All right, so that's the first loop. Let's come back to the audio bin. And one of the greatest ways to add a real signature characteristic to your grooves is just to stack some layers of loops or sounds and things like that. And we'll be doing this throughout most of the project. And so let's take these 2 loops that we used, and here's this second one, and here's both of them together, and then here's the whole beat again. So that instantly gives it some new swing and some new groove accents. But we're going to keep going, and one thing that I really like to do is drag in one-shot hits, like a clap or some of these percussion hits. And when we do this, let's drag this percussion hit in. We're going to put it on bar 9, beat 4. And I like to just copy it over, and you can put it pretty much anywhere on the grid and really create a nice swing accent. So there's the one hit. Let me just drag it over. And as long as it's in a division within the timeline, it's going to give it a nice tempo feel. All right, so let's leave that there for now. And we're going to do the same thing with the clap. So we'll pull out the clap, put it on bar 9, beat 3. Now that's just a standard clap, but what I like to do with something like this is I'm not really looking to add a clap or a second snare, but I'm trying to add a little accent to the groove. So we'll come in here, and inside the sample editor, in this functions list, you see all these edit tools, and we're going to go down here to reverse, and we're actually going to reverse this. Then we're going to come out of the sample editor, and I'm going to zoom in right on that clap, and I'm going to get it lined up right on bar 9, beat 4. And then when we zoom out, it'll be a nice reverse accent. So let me move this percussion hit over, and let's add a little space. There we go, and let's listen. So now we've got those 2 loops and those little groove accents that really make it stand out and give it some personality. So the last thing I'm going to do here is copy the clap before bar 9 and copy it again after bar 10, because what I'm going to do is glue these together, and again I want to have nice even regions, and that's going to be very easy then to loop it and include it in the rest of our mix. So I'm going to do the same thing to the percussion hit, and since that already goes over bar 10, I'll just copy one ahead of bar 9, glue that together, bring out the scissors, cut at the beginning of bar 9, and at bar 10, get rid of that. And now we've got our two loops, our groove accents in nice clean regions that we can loop throughout the rest of our song.